all over. It is now.
It's gonna be a good day, a good vibe. Ordering a bit of Postmates in my...
Good morning, afternoon or evening from whenever or wherever you are watching this video from. I am Jack Adamas, back with a special episode this week of my half-season 23-24 season review in the Premier League. Let's get straight into it. Before we get into this week's video, please do like, share and subscribe. We start the half-season review with Arsenal now. Arsenal are already 10 points worse off this season than they were last season. They've won 4 less games as well and lost 2 more in that time. Now, a lot of that I do put down to their misfiring front three at the moment. You have Martinelli, who's on 18 games, 2 goals and 2 assists, and Gabriel Jesus, who's got 15 games, 3 goals and 1 assist in that time, which is not good enough if you are trying to push for titles. Although one positive for Arsenal, they did breeze past their Champions League group and they have got an easier tie in the round of 16 on paper in Porto. They do need a striker in January, and if they are serious for a title push, then they do need to be in the market for one. Let's see if they are or aren't, how serious they actually are. This season so far, I am giving them a C rating. Next up, we have Aston Villa. Wow, what can I say about Aston Villa? Second in the league this season after 20 games is even beyond their expectations. They have turned Villa Park into a bit of a fortress as well, winning 16 of their last 17 home games, and the only other one being a draw as well in that time. People are throwing out the word title challengers when they talk about Villa. Unfortunately for me, I can't see them being title challengers. I don't think they're good enough for that. However, the fact that people are calling that just goes to show you how much of a great job Unai Emery is doing at Villa. In my opinion, they're not in a title race, but they are definitely in the top 4 race, and it'll be great to see them in next season's Champions League. Ollie Watkins has been their star man this season with 17 goal contributions in 20 games. That is 9 goals and 8 assists in that time. I do also believe they will win the Europa Conference League this season. So for them to be in a top 4 race and for them to be favourites to win the Europa Conference League, you can't give them anything other than an A-star rating this season. Moving on to Bournemouth, we have Bournemouth who have turned a corner now this season. They were winless in their first 9 games and Iraola was on the verge of the sack, that's what people were saying. But since then he's won 7 of his last 10 games and Solanke scoring 12 goals in those 20 games. They do look like a solid side now as well. They are up to 12th in the Premier League this season, 10 points off of the bottom 3 and a game in hand on most teams around them. I am giving them a B- rating for this season. Next up, we have Brentford. Now, Brentford are struggling this season. They are only 4 points above the relegation zone and are probably looking their worst they have done since they've been promoted to the Premier League a few seasons ago. They have only played 19 games this season. However, their game in hand is against Man City at the Etihad. So in their first 19 games, they have got 19 points. They are averaging a point per game. However, to be fair to them, they have been missing their 2 main attacking focal points this season in Mbeumo and Ivan Toney. So when those 2 come back, that is 2 things to look forward to. That's going to be like 2 brand new signings for the club. The question is, will Toney still be there come February? Obviously with the January transfer window coming up and people are sniffing and saying his name quite a lot. So far this season, I am giving Thomas Frank's men a C- rating. However, they do have the ability to turn that round. Brighton, well, what can I say about Brighton? They play attractive football. They're entertaining, especially from a neutral's point of view. They topped their Europa League group after a shaky start in Europe, which is fair enough as it is their first ever season in European football. And they sit 7th in the Premier League, 9 points off of top 4 now. There's no surprises from their season. They're having the exact season I thought they would. They're not overachieving, they're not underachieving. They are just having a solid season this season, and for that reason, I'm giving them a B-. Next up, we move to Burnley, who are 19th in the Premier League. Now, they have conceded the 2nd most goals and scored the 2nd least goals this season in the Premier League. They have shown signs that they can play attractive football, but now they have that big, massive choice to make. Are they going to continue playing attractive football but end up losing games, or are they going to nitty-gritty grind out results? That's up to them and company, but he is a very good manager, so I hope that Burnley don't give him the sack. Though he does have the ability to turn them round, maybe if that does mean going down with them this year and bringing them back up next season. But with that being said, I am giving them a D- rating this season. Moving on, we have Chelsea, who sit 10th in the Premier League this season with 8 wins, 4 draws and 8 losses in their first 20 games. And in most of their games, to be fair to them, they have looked good. They just can't find the back of the net. Cole Palmer is looking like an extremely good signing for them, and he has taken them to the next level with his 12 goal contributions in his 16 games played so far this season. Chelsea have shown glimpses this season with their young squad that they can move towards the top end of the table, but unfortunately after spending £1 billion, it's not about then, it's about now. And so for that reason, I am giving them a D rating. Next up, we have Crystal Palace, who bar their last game will win this in 8. However, they have had injuries to key players throughout the season. Elise is back now and he's got 5 goals in 9 games this season. They do have a fully fit squad now, so I do believe that performances will start to pick up. I do believe Hodgson's been getting a bit of stick for no reasons from some Eagle fans. He has done a good job there. I don't know what they really expect from him. I am going to give them a C rating though this season. Moving on, we have Everton, who sits 17th in the Premier League, 1 point above the drop zone with 16 points. However, if they didn't get a 10-point deduction, they would be sitting pretty in 12th on 26 points. Everton have been good on the road this season. It's at home where they have been struggling. I believe they will be fine this season, and I believe Sean Dyche is doing a good job there. He's got a spine now in the middle of the park, you can see that. And when they turn up, they're good. The only problem is when they don't turn up, they're awful. That's the problem. Another problem for me for them is their centre forward position now. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's a very good player, don't get me wrong, but he's been hit with injuries. And when your top goal scorer is your defensive midfielder with 6 goals, Decore, that spells a bit of problems for me. And for this reason, I am giving them a C- rating. Fulham sit 13th in the Premier League and have lost half the games they've played in this season. However, most of the games they have played in, they have put in good performances. They are 9 points off of relegation. However, they are also 9 points off 6th place. Raul Jimenez is looking like a very good signing and a replacement for Mitrovic. The only problem is that is short term. They will be looking for another striker to replace him long term. I think they will kick on in the second half of the season. 13th in the Premier League and a Carabao Cup semi-final. They are doing pretty well this season. So overall, if I was just talking about the league, I'll give them a C rating. But the fact they are in the Carabao Cup semi-final, I am going to give them a B- rating this season. Liverpool are sitting at the top of the league, 3 points ahead of second place Villa and 5 points ahead of City and Arsenal. Now they have only lost 1 game this season as well, and that was a VAR catastrophe against Spurs. The only critique I have about Liverpool this season is they have drawn 7 games, and that is just because they haven't been able to kill the game off. But a big positive for Liverpool is just how quickly their newly reformed midfield has gelled together. Szoboszlai looks like a great player and he's found his feet straight away in the Premier League. I believe they have what it takes to go all the way and win the league this season. I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying they do have the ability to do so. A big question for Liverpool is, will they miss Salah when he goes to the African Cup of Nations? I don't think they'll miss him as much as people make it out to be, only because they have firepower going forward. Like I said before, if he was a midfielder, then I feel like they would miss him a lot more. But with that being said, a semi-final in the Carabao Cup and top of the league this year, they couldn't have finished this first half of the season any better, so I'm giving them an A rating. Luton are sat in the relegation zone in 18th, 1 point from safety, but they were favourites to go down at the beginning of the season before a ball had even been kicked at 2-5. I mean, a lot of people were even saying that they would go straight back down with the least points ever recorded in a Premier League season. But they've proven a lot of people wrong, and they've shown that they can hold their own in the Premier League. Some examples of this is obviously they drew with Liverpool earlier on in the season. They lost to Man City 2-1 at home, and they lost to Arsenal 4-3. But they was never out of those games. They was always in with a chance. Actually, they also beat Newcastle, and they did beat Everton on the road. They have shown that they have got what it takes to play with the big boys in the Premier League. Do you know what? Rob Edwards has done a very, very good job as manager as well with the limited funds he's had. I think he's an exceptional manager. And for this reason, I am giving them a B- rating because they have proven a lot of people wrong. Next up, we have the Hull City. Now they are third in the Premier League and they are 5 points off of top. However, they do have a game in hand. Haaland has continued his form from last season. In the 15 games he's played this season, he's got 14 goals and 4 assists in that time. And they have also won the FIFA Club World Cup since then. However, they don't look like the City of the last few years, as they've already lost 3 games and drawn 4 games this season, that compared to last season where they lost 5 and drew 5 in the whole season. They are going for a bit of a transitional period right now, but they have found a great player in Jeremy Doku. But as we know, if anyone can go on a crazy winning streak, it is Man City, as they've done it for the last 2 seasons. In the second half of the season, they just seem to kick on. But based on this season so far, I am going to have to give them a B-. Moving on to the red half of Manchester, we have Manchester United, who are 7th in the Premier League, and they are having a very, very weird season. Now, they have already lost 9 games this season and they finished bottom of a Champions League group, which they really should have got out of. But although how poor they have been in the Premier League, they are only 9 points off of top 4. Defensively, they haven't actually been too bad. They've conceded the 4th least amount of goals this season in the Premier League. It's going forward where they have struggled a lot. They have scored the 3rd least amount of goals this season, which is just not good enough for Manchester United standards. In my opinion, Man United's performances this season have been poor. Now, is that Ten Hag's fault? I don't know if it is or isn't. Half of the United fan base want him out, half of the United fan base want him in. Like I've said, it's a very, very strange season for Man United Position-wise, they're not doing too bad, but performance-wise, they're doing absolutely poor. And for that reason, I'm giving them an E rating. Next up, we have Newcastle, and they sit 9th in the Premier League, 11 points off of top 4, and they have already lost 4 more games at this point in the season than they did in the whole of the last season. However, they do only have 1 less win. I feel a bit sorry for Eddie Howe and Newcastle, as throughout the season they have had basically their fully squad out injured, and they was dealt the group of death in the Champions League the first time they've been back there in 20 years. I believe Eddie Howe is still the man for Newcastle. He's done a decent job with the players he's had available to him, obviously with the injuries. I mean, I am an optimistic person, so with all the injuries, one thing that you can say is they found a gem of a player in Lewis Miley, who, although he's only 17, he looks like a seasoned pro. And for that reason, with all the injuries and stuff, I am giving them a C- rating this season. Moving on, we have Nottingham Forest, who sit in 15th place, 5 points above the relegation zone with 20 points. Now, they've obviously played 20 games, so they are also averaging 1 point per game this season. Steve Cooper did get sacked earlier on the season, and they've brought in Nuno Espirito Santos, who's given them that new manager bounce, and they've won 2 out of their last 3 games. They have shown glimpses of what they can do this season, especially on the counter-attacks. Now, they are very good counter-attacking side. It's too early to give Nuno a rating as manager, but what I will say is I believe Nottingham Forest will get drawn into that relegation battle. So for that reason, this season so far, I am giving them a D rating. Next up, we have Sheffield United. They do sit bottom of the Premier League with 9 goals. Next up, we have Sheffield United, who sit bottom of the Premier League. They do have 9 points out of 20 games, and they have already conceded 49 goals this season. They do look destined for the drop, and they also look like they may break that unwanted record of the most goals conceded in a single season, which is obviously 89 goals held by Derby County in the 2007-2008 season. They look like they may break that this season. However, with that being said, Chris Wilder has come in. They are still losing games under him, but he's definitely steadied the ship, and they're losing by more respectful results this season rather than when they was losing by big scorelines at the beginning. So he will obviously try to avoid them breaking that record. I can't give them anything other than an E rating though. Sorry, Sheffield United fans. Tottenham sit 5th in the Premier League now after 20 games. Now, if you offered a Spurs fan at the beginning of the season, they would have taken that, especially when they're only 6 points off the top and 1 point off of the top 4. Spurs started the season very well and looked very, very good, but they did hit a stumbling block when they got some injuries and suspensions to some of their key players. They haven't missed Harry Kane this season like a lot of people thought they would. I didn't think they would, as I knew Son would stand up. Son is only 2 goals behind Haaland and Salah in the Golden Boot race. My only problem with Spurs this season is Ange Ball. Now, when they play Ange Ball and it works, it looks great. When they play Ange Ball and it doesn't work, there's just no plan B. They need some reinforcements in January, and a centre-back is definitely needed in my opinion. However, I am going to give them a B+ rating this season. And we have West Ham, who are 6 points off of top 4, and some of their fans are calling for David Moyes to be sacked. Now, I do call those fans deluded, as last season he won them the Europa Conference League. This season he's topped their Europa League group, and they sit 6th in the Premier League. I do get the fact that they don't play the most attractive football. However, the most important thing is winning, which they've been doing so well this season. Now, I do have a question for the Moyes out fans. If you are Moyes out, if you do sack him, who would you replace him with? Please do comment below to let me know who you think would do a better job for your club than he would. I personally think they're having a great season, so for that reason I am going to give them a B+ rating for their season so far. Next up, we have Wolves, who sit 11th in the Premier League. Now, they have been extremely unlucky this season. With their first few games, they had some VAR decisions that definitely went against them. And to be fair, I think Gary O'Neill was outstanding and articulate in his replies to the media for those things earlier on in the season. And he just took them on the chin, and look, it made him and his squad stronger. He's done a very good job at Wolves, with the limited funds he's had. I feel he was unfairly dismissed by Bournemouth at the beginning of the season, and he's gone to Wolves now, and he's doing well there. So it just goes to show you how much of a very good manager he actually is. I mean, they are only 3 points behind Man United. One person I want to give a special mention to though, and some credit to, because I don't think he has had enough credit by the press and the media and the pundits this season, is Hwang. What a season he is having for Wolves. And I'm going to give him, Gary O'Neill and the rest of the squad a B- rating this season. Thank you very much if you are still here at the end of my video. I really do appreciate the love and support I've been getting from you guys. Please do like, share, follow, but most importantly, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And remember, if you don't shoot, you can't score. Bye guys, have a good week.